If they end up in a long, drawn-out legal battle between them, I mean, do you worry that that could sort of hamper you guys? You know, you were doing well in the polls, and now here you're going to have this.
The rest of the story depends on us, on our courage, on our determination, on our strength, on our will to fight. Will to fight the CAQ, who's a bad government. Things were going bad, so they try to attack doctors. It's turning against them. A government that failed on everything, $14 billion deficit when things are going bad in terms of education, of health, everywhere. Now they're attacking unions because they say unions are not popular. We'll see how that goes. And you have the Parti Québécois that just said last week we're going to have the Quebec dollar, but we're going to keep the Canadian dollar for 10 years so there's no instability. And my message is, if you don't want instability, don't separate.
So I'm trying to remember what the question was originally because we went so many different places with that answer. So I guess that was a nice job of diverting attention from the question. James Mennie is on the phone over at the Montreal Gazette. Jim, what do you make of this?
I have to tell you, buddy, I know what you do for a living. I know your hours of work, so I know you weren't able to watch this presser because you were doing the show. But I got to tell you, if you can find the time later on, I'm sure it's going to be packaged somewhere. What a perfect example of how to change the channel. And that clip specifically is excellent. It began with a question about the problems besetting the Liberal Party, about allegations of vote buying, and it ended with a campaign speech by the Liberal leader, Pablo Rodriguez. And we're going to see more of that. When this press conference began, I didn't know which way it was going to go, but I think it was only a matter of a couple of minutes. We're going to be, our lawyers are being pointed at the Journal de Montréal. One of my M&A's lawyers are being pointed at Cogeco. Both are news outlets that reported this to various degrees. Even though, as a journalist, I might suggest Mr. Rodriguez is playing with fire a little bit. Normally, when you start running stories like this, you don't throw everything into one throw. You usually have a few bombshells that you like to spread out over the course of a week or whatever. Maybe that's the case here. Maybe it isn't. Maybe he's 100% right. Maybe they didn't do their job and cross all the T's and dot all the I's. But even so, it's going to be very, very difficult for, I think, any political entity to turn around and tell a media outlet, give me your sources. I know he says he's not asking for sources, but in fact what he's doing is asking for sources.
Yeah.
But the information he's asking for, you'll know who the source was. So all that to tell you, though, I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think that's the plan here. The plan here is when you've got lawyers' letters going back and forth like snowflakes in the middle of a blizzard, okay? Where do we wind up, Aaron? We wind up in a situation. Listen, I'd like to answer your question, but this is now in the hands of the lawyers, and it could wind up before the courts.
Right.
So I can't talk to you. Everybody is in that situation, but especially the Liberals, and I think that's what they have to do. And without taking sides here, and my hat's off to Mr. Rodriguez or whoever his damage control team are, because this is exactly what they've done. They have been able now to sort of get ahead of the story, roll up your sleeves, clench a fist and say, you put up or shut up, all right? But in the meantime, I'm not going to have to answer any questions because I'm not the one who should have to explain myself. The people who are making these allegations should explain themselves. And Aaron, even if it goes nowhere, it's going to become increasingly difficult, if not impossible, to talk about. And this was, and you and I have been having this conversation all week, would be the objective because it's not a matter of, were votes bought or whatever. The idea is the Liberal brand was being dragged through the mud. And the idea now, after it has been slowly been rehabilitated after all these years, is to get it back in a positive light. And I think what you saw today was the first step of that. Will it perhaps explode in the Liberals' face? We'll see. We'll see what else the Journal's got. We'll see what else Cogeco has, if anything. We'll see how they react to these demands. But as I say, in the meantime, in the day-to-day, all of a sudden, this is not going to be a topic of conversation. You can speculate all the hell you want, sitting in a bar, having a drink with your colleague, or at the water cooler. I have spent so much of my career, Aaron, all these journalists complaining about, I knew this guy was bent, this guy was corrupt. Of course, you quietly say to yourself, if you're so sure, why don't you write something with your name under it? Of course, it never did because there was no proof. Now, is that the case here? On behalf of Pierre Karl Pelado and his Quebecor collection of media outlets, I hope that's not the case, because they have just been called to book. They have been told, as I say, put up or shut up by someone who, quite frankly, at this point in time, has made this afternoon a very compelling case that they do so.
But so I'm trying to imagine how this plays out. At some point, the Journal will have to, if they don't do it now because they've been threatened or asked, whatever, if it ends up in court, they will have no choice, right?
Well, it depends. I mean, you don't have to, I don't believe you can be compelled to reveal a source, well,
you need a reason not to be compelled to reveal a source, right? In this case, if Pablo keeps saying, you know what, we are risking reputations here, you're risking careers here, you'd think that'd be compelling enough to reveal a source, wouldn't it?
Well, it depends, but I got to tell you, the idea that I've seen so many stories, not political and otherwise, be able to proceed on the strength of this is, we have anonymous sources and we protect our sources, and it's as simple as that, and we're not going to tell you where we got this from. And perhaps it's incumbent on you to show that this didn't happen. You have to. A reasonable person would have to look at it this way: why would the Journal de Montréal write this? For the fun of it? Do they want to torpedo the Liberals? Because if that's the idea, then you had better be able to prove that as well. That's a pretty big allegation to make as well. But the fact is, the Bureau d'enquête of the Journal de Montréal is right infinitely more often than it is wrong. So, as I say, I think Mr. Rodriguez made a very calculated gamble this afternoon, and we'll see what happens. But as I say, I don't think that would be the long term. We know, all of us know, how quickly the wheels of justice turn in the province of Quebec. So the question is now, what's the immediate objective? It's been achieved. People will have to stop talking about this because why?
Yeah.
C'est devant les cours, monsieur. So you know what? Next case. Let's talk about something else.
Okay, let's move on. Talk about something else. Indeed, municipally, I had Soraya on the show yesterday. I like that I can call her by her first name. I'm sorry. The new mayor of Montreal on the show. She was talking. One of the questions, by the way, was, look, she had a chance to meet François Legault when they inaugurated the new REM line. And then, of course, today they had a formal meeting, which it turns out comes out with some potentially good news. I mean, it's an offer to, consider putting a very big project together here in Montreal. What do you think so far?
Well, so far that was the main theme that they wanted to come out. That was the only theme, indeed, that came out in the readout from both Legault's office and the office of Mayor Ferrada. That said, the issue that I asked you to ask her about, homelessness, the Premier said he was open to perhaps giving Montreal more powers to deal with it front and center in Montreal, the issues of homelessness. But once again, he's playing the same cassette. He equates immigration with homelessness. And it's not entirely untrue that and as he points out, when you add 200,000 people in the space of a year to the population of Montreal, guess what? The seams are going to start to stretch and burst. And a lot of people, half of those people are asylum seekers. And that's going to put pressure on the system, all resources, whether it's housing or medical care. That said, and he doesn't care anymore, but it's pretty dangerous ground because all his followers are going to hear is immigration, blah, 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 homelessness. So that they'll equate those two things together. And as I say, it's not mutually exclusive, but this problem is far more complex. And you would hope that François Legault knows perfectly well what's happening in Montreal, and not just in Montreal, Aaron. In a lot of cities in the regions now, we're seeing the issue of homelessness. We're seeing these camps being set up in places where no one ever dreamed they'd be set up. But that's the reality. But to turn around and smugly kind of say, well, we got to lower those immigration levels, that's a cop-out. And I think it'll be interesting to see if behind the scenes, because obviously Mayor Ferrada can't turn around and start, stomping all over the Premier, at least not in the short term. We'll have to wait and see if there is a way that she can finagle either resources, more powers, whatever. But it's clear, and I got the reading from her that she takes it very seriously. This is the number one problem in the city right now, whether it affects, whether it's housing or health or simple public security. This is front and center, the biggest issue that Montreal is going to tackle. So, I wish her luck. But let's put it this way. I saw François Legault do his usual let's blame somebody else dance today, but I didn't see any walls being built. So, let's be optimistic and hope that things will get better before they get worse.
Yeah, or some have said, when we asked people yesterday to weigh in with questions for, as you just said, could relations between Montreal and Quebec get any worse? So let's hope that's the case.
Yeah.
By the way, can I just ask, because I asked this question, I'll come back and ask this as well. I know it's only been a couple of weeks, in the 2 weeks that Soraya Martinez-Ferreira has been mayor. What's your overall take?
Well, not bad. Like I say, I admire the fact that she rolled the dice on the transit strike, and she even mentioned, I think she even described it as taking a risk when she was talking to you yesterday, of sort of standing up and saying, listen, you know what, let's get this settled by November 15th. That was pretty well unprecedented on the part of a Montreal mayor getting involved in a labor dispute like that, and it paid off. And whether serendipitous or not, the fact that drivers decided to have a last-minute settlement for their contract, I mean, it looks good. Is she that good in terms of handicapping the odds? We'll wait and see. But the thing that strikes me as well is that, and perhaps it's because of it, for someone who is very fluent in 3 languages, I find she chooses her words very, very carefully. And that suggests that she thinks a great deal before she speaks. And that in and of itself is perhaps a superpower when it comes to being a politician.
There you go. Interesting take. James, thanks so much. You have a good weekend.
You too, buddy.
The biggest songs in the world. You've heard them countless times. Now, learn the details of how they came to be. Join Ruby Carr for Encore, the stories behind the songs you love. New interviews and newly unearthed archive footage make for a fascinating weekly deep dive. Stream Encore, the stories behind the songs you love on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts.